I'm Joni.
And I'm Chip.
And this is our renovation story. I loved our house before. I loved that it had charm, it felt old. So I really wanted it to feel like our house just grew up, kind of. We bought this house back in 2008. We've been married for not quite a year, and we just fell in love with the charm of the house. Honestly, it probably wasn't the best financial decision.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe we just fell in love with it. It had checkerboard floors, it had a lot of character. We love the walkability of the neighborhood, so we just went for it. We lived here for about 2 years before we had our first daughter, Vivi, and we kind of always thought we would move to a bigger house once we started having kids, but we just loved it and stayed, and then we kept staying, and then we had more babies. And finally, it got to a place where we had to do something about it.
Yeah, back in 2015, we felt the pressure of starting to bust at the seams a little bit. Joni was pregnant with our third, and we knew that we needed a bit more space. At that time, we didn't really have the budget to expand the house. We just needed to reconfigure the inside to work a little bit better. It was very kind of closed off, room to room.
When we did our first renovation, we focused on the kitchen because that was a real pain point, and we also had a little sitting area off to the side so we could have family meals together. So that really stretched it for us and made us able to stay for quite a bit longer. When we were expecting our fourth baby, we realized it just wasn't working anymore. So we either needed a bigger house or we needed to expand this one.
The reason we decided not to move was we loved the neighborhood. We just loved being able to walk up the street to the market village. And so the idea of picking up and moving to a different place and trying to find another place that had the same size yard and the same type of characteristics just felt impractical, honestly, and like it would be really tough on our family. We got connected to this architect through our contractor. He sat down in his office, and for 2 hours, he had all the plans of our old house, and he just sketched. And so Joni just talked. It was a cool process of trying to find an architect that I think could understand Joni's design vision.
I would describe my style as vintage eclectic. I love things that tell a story. I love old things. I have a blog and an Instagram called Lay Baby Lay, and I love creating inspiration for other moms. And I feel like that was a big part of my story because when we had babies, it was really hard for me to make that adjustment, and having a really happy, joyful space to be in made such a difference. And so I love putting inspiration out there.
So with this second renovation, we really wanted to create space where we could entertain. Joni and I both love to host people. We love having big dinner parties or gatherings, and we knew we wanted to push the house back to create some more entertaining space. And when we started looking at the front profile of the house, we knew we basically wanted a look that would make us go up. So at that point, because we were going out back and we were going up, we actually created quite a good bit more space. So we were at 1,700 square feet. So with the renovation, it came up to about 4,400 square feet. Wanted to have space, obviously, for 4 teenage girls as they grow up. How can we make sure that that can evolve over time? All the bathrooms. Yeah.
We're in the library, and this is the one room in the house that still feels the same. It's the same footprint as it was in the former house, and also one of my favorite spaces. So I love that we got to keep this room.
We had to get a bit creative in how to use the wall space, and so we actually recessed these in between the studs.
The kids use this room. It's not just for pretty, so we have all the kid books, kid games, all the things in here. I feel like we have a dinner party whenever we can. I get so excited about having people over. I love so much that we can fit our whole family. There's 6 of us, and we have 2 extra seats, and I can also add a couple extra seats on the end, so we can get a lot of friends around the table, and it's my favorite place to eat. We love to have family meals here. I dreamed about that table for so long, and it was one of the first things we bought when we moved in was a big, huge table. And I love it so much.
So this is original fireplace, the house. Honestly, we didn't do a ton of fires in here when we first lived here because the chimney was not in the best shape. I think we had it cleaned a couple times, but it was going to be too expensive to repair. But we just thought it had so much character, we wanted to keep it. So even though we're not making fires in here, it just feels like it's a nice throwback to the original.
There was a wall here, and yeah, so this was an arch originally too that went into a little bit of a living room.
We thought it'd be really neat to have a wet bar, I love coffee, so this is kind of my little coffee station bar. And it transforms when we have people over, we turn it into a little drink station. We added these stairs going down. This was new, but then we also had stairs going up, of course, and we thought it would be neat to have them stacked. We had some ideas, but one of the things in the original plans of the architect was that this would be just a big wall right here, and these stairs would be closed in. And since you're coming in from the front door, we just felt like, it's such a beautiful view through. We really wanted to keep it open and airy. So we thought floating stairs, that could be a cool idea. And of course, everybody thought we were crazy because we've got a little one on the way, and but it turns out, they're very to code, and they're safe, they're friendly. We're not actually crazy.
Yeah, and we did the oak on the treads to match the original floors. So even though it's sort of a modern piece, it ties in with the old house. I call this the coffee lounge. I love that we have a sitting area here, so when we have people over, we can work on food and they can sit here and have appetizers or drinks, and it's easy to talk. And also the girls love to hang out here too. It's a great spot for them to do homework. Vivi loves to lounge on the sofa and read books after school.
The big open floor plan allows a lot of people to come in and kind of spread out and have a place to hang out.
So our island is really big, and I didn't want it to feel super heavy, and so we decided to do these poles on the end. I wanted the brass detail to tie into the rest of the room, and Chip did a great job of sourcing them off of a pole dancing supply website, and it's worked out great. I love the detail that it adds to this room.
You find a lot of these construction supply places charge an arm and a leg for some certain stuff, and so getting scrappy and trying to find ways to get creative saved a little bit on the budget.
And they would also cut it to whatever size you wanted, so it came ready to just pop it in there.
Right. Yeah.
It's great. We really wanted to have symmetry in the kitchen, and we spent a lot of time laying out the windows before it was actually built out. So we came in here with painter's tape, and we taped it on the wall to see what felt really great to us. We loved these plain front cabinets and drawers, and so we wanted to add a little bit of detail to the back wall, so that's why we went with this molding here. We have this blend of clean and modern, and then also a little nod to this sort of vintage feel. So I wanted the lighting to feel kind of like a diner or a restaurant, and I love the pendants that we have. They're called wedding cake pendants, which I just thought was perfect. I'm like, they're the icing on the cake for the kitchen, Here is our living room, and I love this space. We spend a lot of time in here, and we wanted this to just be very much a hangout space, so we didn't put a TV in here. We have a large coffee table, so it feels very inviting and a place where you want to sit and have conversation or play games.
So in our family room, there was a vision for how do we connect the back of our house to our backyard, which we love. And our old house just kind of ended, and there was a couple windows, but you really didn't have any way to see into the backyard, see our kids playing. That was really important to us. How can we make it feel like an extension? And so that was a big goal. We ended up creating these double French doors with a ton of glass so you could really let the outside come in. The fireplace is all brand new. I had something very specific in mind, and the contractor didn't really understand because they'd never done anything like it. And so we ended up coming and finishing the front and the sides in a way that felt very clean and architectural. They had put a bunch of trim up. I ripped the trim off. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna do this myself.
I feel like our architectural details are very simple, like our trim and the fireplace and everything, but at the end of the day, I also love lots of detail and interest, so I put a lot of stuff on it.
So the other thing we did in here, I think it was a pretty dramatic change, was actually raising the ceiling height from 8 feet to 9 feet. And so as you can see, it's a big open space, and we wanted the proportion to feel right. So we wanted the doors to be taller, we wanted the windows to be taller. In order to do that, we really needed the ceiling to be taller. And so while it was an investment to get it raised up all around, really feel like it was worth it. You're gonna do a project like this once, right? And so while it can seem like these little details matter, and a lot of them do, like you're gonna really wanna, I think, commit to doing something that you're gonna enjoy for the rest of your life.
Next, we're gonna head upstairs and show you where our 4 girls stay and hang out. Right up here, we have a loft, which is the kids' play space, and it opens right into the girls' study, which is one of my favorite rooms. So this is a room where the girls hang out and do homework or play or have a quiet space to read. It's sort of a retreat from the youngest. Yeah. And I love that they have a room they can go to have quiet.
Joni had some ideas for these big stripes, and we thought it would be really cool if these big stripes would just melt into this desk. make it one continuous thing. So I'd built a couple floating desks in the past, and I thought it'd be really fun to make this one a little bit more girly and add some like fun details to it. So we did these scalloped front detail here, and then we also added this like rounded corner, which I thought was just like a really fun finishing touch. So yeah, really happy with how it came out.
They love this space. They love each having their own little cubby too that we created for them so they can stash things away. And this is such a fun spot to sit and read or do homework after school. So this is the big girls' room where they all stay. So our 3 oldest are in here, and they each have a twin bed, and we love how there's enough space for that. And actually, when we were working on the house, we had planned to do a Jack and Jill bedroom here with the nursery over there, but it was really cramped. And so we ended up changing that up and putting a bathroom here so we have more space for all of them to be in here. Our girls love being together. I mean, bedtime is a really special time for them, and it's really neat to see that as sort of a bonding time for them. I mean, they're apart all day at school, and so it's been really great for them to share a bedroom, and then they have plenty of space to go and have quiet during the day if they need it. In the big girls' room, they actually, at the end of the room was supposed to be a closet, and when we were looking at the house after it had been framed out, we were like, this space is too beautiful to make it a closet. It would be just a waste.
We walked in and saw the framing. We're like, you can't close off that room. And this became one of our favorite spots.
We have some books in here, and we have curtains here so you can close it off. And it's just a really happy space for them to sit and read or play. And it's another one of my favorite spots in the house.
Yeah, I love the wallpaper. It just makes it such like a fun, friendly spot.
Yeah.
It's cool how, you know, we had this idea for a steeped pitch roof, and we knew maybe, well, I don't know how practical it would be, but we love the aesthetic of it. And it's so cool to see how it translates in the inside and creates these really dramatic kind of shapes that Joni's gotten to work with and apply her design creativity to.
I mean, it makes you really feel something, you know, the dimensions and the angles make it really interesting. So it's a more fun space, I think, instead of just a box. Then around the corner, we have the nursery where the youngest sleeps.
Yeah.
She goes to bed earlier, so we love having a room where the big girls can stay up later and have their big girl time.
The good thing is we've got a lot of flexibility. So we've got this room, which the girls love right now, but you know, in a couple of years, things are going to change, right? Like Vivi's probably going to want her own space, our oldest. So it gives us a lot of flexibility to think about reconfiguring as our family evolves and grows.
The total renovation took about 10 months.
So we went from a 2 to 1,700 square feet to a 5.5 at around 4,400 square feet. While we did go over budget, we knew that it was going to be worth it. We're not leaving. This is where we're going to be. So it's an investment really in our family. Would we do it all again?
Absolutely.
So, that's such a great question. Yeah, I feel like, I mean, Joni just loves creating, right? Like that's how you're wired. And so even though we did the renovation, we're still recreating rooms. Like even the downstairs is the next project. I think it'll always be something.
Yeah.
Well, would we do an entire massive renovation again?
Oh, yeah, I will. I mean, it's fun.
Joni would, in a heartbeat, yeah. I think you would. Me not so much.
What I did was I kind of took a few pieces of paper and practiced drawing with the Sharpie and kind of making these doodles and these birds and things, and then I thought, okay, I'm ready. And so I just started drawing on the wall. And what's really fun is that my then 6-year-old helped me with it. She came in and she's like, we get to draw on the walls? Only in this room, do not draw on anything else. I'm Beth, and this is my handmade home in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm from Florida, so finding things that remind me of Florida definitely influences my decor. I'm drawn to things that, of course, maybe look more like the sea or the ocean or the coastal areas. One thing that we had wanted to do, or I wanted to do, is I really wanted some great palm wallpaper in this powder bath. And so I thought, you know, maybe I'll just give it a go and we'll just see what happens. And like I said, I kind of painted on some practice rounds and then I felt good about it. The nice thing is I got to pick out the exact color green that I wanted, and so that was a real advantage. I always say that I've never met a pattern I didn't like. I mean, I am so drawn to pattern and sometimes I really have to be reined in. So this is our laundry room, and this is where we use the Sharpie to kind of create this wallpaper effect. And my youngest daughter, who's 7, she actually helped me. She left me, I didn't know she was gonna do this, and she left me a sweet message which I love because when you're in the laundry room and thinking of the mundane, like laundry, it's always nice to have a really precious message like that. If you spend as much time in the laundry room, you need to enjoy it, and it should be a fun space. I definitely like to get my kids' input. For example, my girls share a room, and so we talked about colors. So I have a daughter who is 7 and one who's 13. One is a huge fan of pink, one is not so much a fan of pink. So I think doing the blue walls and then adding in the pink accents really serve to kind of appease both of them. My son asked for a garnet and gold room because we are Florida State fans and he loves Florida State. And you know, it really was fun because he ended up with a red dresser and I found this great bamboo kind of gold-ish lamp, and I'm like, there we go, we've got your Florida State in there. And it doesn't feel like it's a sports theme room. So I think you can take elements that children give you and incorporate those in different ways. Well, this is my kids' playroom. It is so overwhelming, especially when you have multiple children, to know what to do with all of their artwork. Really, I think what kind of it creates is almost a wallpaper in a way, with the just using the black tape to put it, and it's very graphic. And I think it really makes the space very whimsical and fun. And it's fun for them to walk in and see the things that they've created. You can see, set up a couch. I definitely want them to have some good seating areas and places that are comfortable for them. If you're thinking about designing, you know, your own bedroom, you want to come into a space that feels welcoming and feels good. And so the same thing for children. Children won't hang out in a room if it's not practical. And so I think thinking about, well, how would they use this? I mean, do they need a table where it's really easy, just wipe it off in case marker gets on top of it? I have got some great tables that have Formica, and people don't usually think about Formica, but it actually can be really pretty and really easy to work with. I definitely want to get their opinions because I want them to love their room. I want to love my bedroom. I want the kids to love the spaces that they're in. Mary and Wilma is the name of my company, and it's actually named after my maternal and paternal grandmothers, both of whom were very different, but also very special to me. Really, I'm devoted through Mary and Wilma to finding antique, vintage, and funky finds that hopefully bring joy to people in their homes. Really, I source my items from everywhere. I'm always looking really for great pieces that might not even work in my home, but I know really deserve a second story and have great function and form and are beautiful and also interesting, that could tell a story in someone else's home. The sky's kind of the limit. I love to look for beauty in all places. I also love these vintage paint by numbers. I had really originally bought them to sell, and we just gotten back from Disney World. I'm a huge fan of the tiki room with the birds, and I just kind of fell in love with them. For me, it's kind of a gut feeling. I think sometimes people are, you know, it's almost paralysis by analysis. They just cannot make a decision. I really feel like if you are drawn to a piece, you know, if you're in an antique store or there's something that you just fall in love with, I think there's a reason. I think your gut is saying, this belongs in our home. You know, buy the pieces that you love. If it speaks to you, I think it will definitely work. And then you can feel, and then you walk in and you fill your home with things that you love. When you walk into our home, it doesn't feel like anybody else's home. And I think your home should be an expression of who you are and who your family is. And so I really want people, I want it to be comfortable. I want them to want to stay in our home. You know, that's the biggest probably compliment for me, is that people just walk in and feel at home.
Hey there, I'm Brian Patrick Flynn. I'm the interior designer of HGTV Dream Home, and this is my own 1965 mid-century modern dream home in Atlanta, Georgia. And I want to give you a look at some of my favorite spaces and everything I've done since I bought this house about 10 years ago. So come on in and we will start with my entryway. But a lot of people refer to it as my art gallery because it technically is one. So when you first walk in the house, you immediately get a taste of my own personality and my particular taste in art. I don't like one medium. I like photography, I like abstract, I like representational, I like graphic art, I like sculpture, I like found objects, and all of those can be found on any wall in my entryway. This is my first trip 10 years ago to Iceland, and I loved everything about the mood of this photo. So it's one of the first things you see from 3 different spaces within the house. Also, I spent a lot of times in my earlier years going to flea markets and garage sales and estate sales, and I found this. It was actually free at a friend's estate sale, and I loved everything about it so much. It's referred to as a brutalist sculpture. It's from like the mid-1970s, and I even have sentimental things that wouldn't necessarily be art. Like my little nephew who's about to turn 5, he calls me Uncle BB. And I loved it because it was like just this moment in time when he was about 2 years old. So we framed it and added it to the wall. So any direction you look in my entryway, there's just all these stories of places I've been and experiences I've had. And I think that kind of gives people a little bit of a movie trailer as to the person who lives in this house before they make their way around. Let me take you into what we call the Great Room, which is the most recently remodeled part of the house, which kind of didn't even exist before, but now it's like a multi-purpose space that we use all the time. Professionally, I'm an interior designer, but I am also a production designer, which means I don't just design houses for people, residential spaces, I also design spaces that are meant for entertainment, like sets or vignettes. That really affects how I design my own home because I'm always thinking of how things look through the lens. So, how do the colors play? What do the patterns look like? Can I tell by looking at this room what kind of person lives here? And that's the same way that I decorate and design houses for myself and for real people. When we remodeled this in 2020, the plan was we'd been home for a good 5 or 6 months and we wanted the feeling, this is very specific, of what it would be like to live in a modern treehouse. What we did was opened everything up, did everything bright white, not only the walls and the ceilings, but the floors as well. And I say that apprehensively because white floors are maybe not the most practical thing in the world, but for somebody who is totally inspired by natural light, they're the perfect choice because they bounce light around the whole entire house and everything seems very bright and happy all the time. One of the things that I try to do in almost every space I design is have a conversation starter. My artist friend who lives in Charleston, South Carolina, Sam, she creates original pieces of art out of felt. And she cuts them free-handedly into all different shapes and sizes and people. And because I'm such a music person, I love the idea of having this kind of motley crew of different iconic musicians from all these different decades. Right off my studio space is the cocktail lounge. My favorite things as far as interior design are concerned are interior architecture. I love custom upholstery and I also love lighting. So this is the perfect example of a room that does all 3 of those things. I always wanted the feeling of having kind of like a 1960s or early 1970s nightclub in my own house. The best way to use the space was to create a built-in banquette that's U-shaped. And although it's white, people see it and they're like, that is so impractical. This is performance fabric. So this is indoor, outdoor, and everything wipes right off of it. It will never be perfectly pristine white the way it was when I first had it made, but it holds up pretty well. The other thing that I love about this is the gigantic disco ball. It's not that easy to find something this big, but I found my 42-inch disco ball at a party rental company in New Jersey. You never know where you're gonna find the things you're looking for. Just above my head is one of the coolest pieces of art you're gonna find in my house. This is a neon sign. When it lights up, it's bright aqua. And it's lyrics from this song that a friend of mine wrote that kind of compares life to what it's like remodeling a house or restoring an old, beautiful architectural gem. And so I took some of the lyrics and turned them into the sign because I love the idea that people know music is always gonna be on in my house and there's a disco ball right above, there's usually cocktails going, and this truly does feel like you've been transported to a nightclub even though you're in the center of my house. I was planning on doing a custom coffee table in here because there's so much space to fill inside of the U-shaped banquette. I was at a flea market and they had this. I could not believe the price. It wasn't very expensive and it was 50 inches by 50 inches, which fills the space perfectly. And I kept thinking, I want clear because I love my rugs so much. My friend Meredith, who lives in Toronto, made this from scratch. And the idea was it was supposed to look like fragmented icebergs because I love the polar regions. So it was a match made in heaven because it's big, it holds everything I need it to hold, and I can see right through it to the rug. So this came home with me that same day, even though I did not have a car that could accommodate it. We found one by the end of the day. Similar to the way that I've delineated the cocktail lounge from the workspace, I've done the same thing over here with my TV room. And the thing that I love about using these divider screens is they allow the light to totally pass through without making a space darker, but at the same time, they add just a little bit of privacy. And this is the perfect example of why I like the privacy. One of my hangups as an interior designer is I love a TV in almost every room in the house, but I don't like TVs in rooms where I want people to come over and talk and have conversations. I think TVs should not necessarily be super visible. So this is my TV room. It has a 22-foot long L-shaped banquette, and it took me about 8 months to have this made because the company that I worked with wanted to make sure the pitch was exactly what I wanted for my height, which is 6'5". It's very hard to find a sofa for somebody who's 6'5" like me. After months and months of going back and forth to have this custom made, everything about it was selected. And the thing that really stood out to me about the actual fabric is this is a wool boucle. It is so classically mid-century modern because it has this very rough, nubby texture to it. When I first saw this fabric and I knew that it came in forest green, I was like, that's perfect. We've incorporated all these USB and outlets into the base of the banquette. Was absolutely the most expensive thing in the entire house, but it's worth it because there's plenty of room to just kick back and watch TV, and nobody else ever sees the TV except for us. We have a gigantic industrial oversized fan above us, and another thing you'll see in almost every room in the house here is the use of skylights. Luckily, we have skylights that open and close so we can ventilate, so during the harsh summers here in Georgia, we don't have to worry about being too hot. This room is also a lot less colorful, mostly because we're up here in the trees. We feel like we're nestled into the woods, and everything outside the window is either brown, gray, or green, so everything inside the room is the same as well. When people come over and they're like, why are there so many iceberg-oriented things in your house? I got married in 2017 in Antarctica. I'm not kidding. I legitimately made it all the way to the bottom of the planet where like nobody ever goes. It was the most magical experience ever. And when I got married, I have an artist friend who lives in Nashville, and she uses mixed media. And she made this gigantic 7.5 foot by 4 foot mixed media piece of one of our favorite icebergs we saw in this area called the Lemaire Channel in Antarctica. Almost anywhere you look in the house, there's some type of nod back to our experience in Antarctica, whether it's color, whether it's art or texture. So the most recently completed space, the entire house, is the opposite of an adult space to watch TV. It is a nursery because I'm expecting my first baby, a daughter, in about a week. So we just completed it, and you will be the first people to ever see this space. It took me a long time to get my head around what direction I wanted to go. I never realized how hard it is to narrow down your selections as an interior designer when you're doing your own house. I wanted a nod to a little Nordic explorer. I didn't want anything that had been done a million times before, so a friend of mine designed this wallpaper with me from scratch. So the whole idea is we have a little Nordic explorer, and she's out with her backpack and her teddy bear, and she is exploring all the Nordic countries. So when we have a little baby in the crib, she can see herself and all her little animal friends. I would say the hardest thing about designing my own home as an interior designer is there's too many options. I get hired by people to narrow down choices to 3 or 4 for every single aspect of the design process. I don't have anybody filtering that for me. Plus, I see every single thing that's out there at all the design centers, so it's like sensory overload. There's just too many options. And when you're doing every single room in your house and you're in charge of the budget and the timeline, the sky's the limit, which sounds fun, but in reality, I just need somebody else to help reel me in. And a lot of times that has to be me, which is not the easiest task. I had to get really clever with the budget. And when I was looking at gliders, I immediately went towards the gliders that are impractical from a price standpoint, and you're only gonna use it for 2 years. So investing thousands of dollars on a glider is not really the best use of your money. I was consistently going back to this particular glider, but I did not like the fabric it came in, so I kept skipping over it. And then I had an idea, wait, that glider is the most affordable one online. So I just bought it. Then I went and found this performance fabric that's in my favorite shade of green, which is pine needle or forest green. Had it recovered, and then also brought a little bit of a custom touch in with this welt cord, which is bubblegum pink. So for a fraction of what it would have cost to have something made custom, I bought something affordably and just had it reupholstered. The one part of the room where I splurged, and I knew I was always going to, was gonna be the crib. I fell in love with the overall look of this about 2 or 3 years ago before we even know we were expecting our first baby. What I love the most about it is the unique architecture of the crib. It has this beautiful X detail on each side, and then the crib itself is pure white. And because we're naming our daughter Clover, and I love the idea of it being very Irish and Irish stuff being green, we could do any color we wanted because it was custom made, and it's just a little nod to her name. So this was where the majority of the decorating budget went. Aside from the room just being super playful and being custom to our own daughter, I wanted to make sure it fit the vernacular and also the architecture. So there are a few nods to mid-century modernism here. We have a chrome mushroom lamp, which is super 60s and 70s. And also we have this really modern slatted ceiling. This is something my carpenter Michael did a few years ago, and I knew I wanted to add some architecture to a room that was otherwise just a rectangle with absolutely no character. And I think the lamp mixed with the ceiling and the incredible hardware that you see on the doors, those are starbursts from the 1960s. So I think those three little hints of mid-century really make this room appropriate for this house. There are so many touches in there that are so personal, and I'm really proud of it. It's kind of my dream nursery, but it's definitely not something that would have been requested by one of my clients. It's actually true and original specifically for my child, and that's what makes me love it even more. This is the space that we refer to as our family room, and it is towards the front of the house, and it's what connects the entryway to the kitchen. And it was kind of hard to design because it is kind of a pass-through space. So I had to get really clever with the way that we added the seating. So these are remarkably low modular seating pieces. We added 3 on each side. They create about 13 feet of seating space. And they're super low, which was amazingly helpful because one of the most expensive things in the entire remodel was investing in the steel windows and the steel doors. Because these are such a feature from the outdoors, if I had tall furniture, you'd be looking at the back of furniture from outside. A lot of times people fall asleep in this room, which is a huge compliment as an interior designer, because a lot of times when you live in a very mid-century modern home, people can find them so modern that they're cold, they're impersonal. But this house is so personalized that I think people feel really warm when they walk in. And the family room is always going to be the place that gets the most traffic. This is the space that we as a family unit will spend the most time. So I wanted to create a really beautiful focal point with one of my least favorite things in the interior design world, and that is a corner fireplace. Corner fireplaces make it really hard as a designer or a decorator to create a space plan for furniture around because it's awkward. There's a door on this side, there's a window over here, but what I wanted to do is give it some personality. So if you look, this is very mid-century modern. These are matte and they all have different colors, and they were placed randomly with no grout, so it just has this really nice, imperfectly perfect look. And we went with a frame TV because when we don't have cartoons playing or children's programming on, we can put up our favorite piece of art here and it just looks like a framed piece of art. It's directly in the corner of where the kitchen meets the family room. Now, this actually is not my dream kitchen. This is a kitchen that has been more practical than anything else because when we bought the house, it was very dark and very low. The ceilings only came to about 8 feet. I had all this space to play with, and we added a skylight, we added all these steel windows, because I wanted the kitchen to also feel kind of treehouse-like. These are seamless cabinet fronts because I wanted this to be super minimal. We are open to totally changing this again, but right now it's working for us. It's just so minimal that when people come over, they're like, excuse me, sir, how do I open these cabinets? So this may look a lot different in about 2 or 3 years. I'm a very flexible designer. I like things to kind of move as I grow and change and my tastes evolve. But I would say when it comes to interior architecture, that's where I set things in stone to stay, to honor the overall vibe of the house. So there are some things in the house that are permanent, that are not moving, but they're more architectural and structural rather than decorative. The most used spot in the kitchen is the breakfast nook, which is towards the back of the house, all mid-century furniture, mid-century lighting. This is a space that is sure going to see probably the most family time aside from the actual family room. And I think we're pretty set up here in the breakfast nook too. We've already got our high chair. In fact, the high chair has been here longer than these chairs have because we've been so excited about this new change in life that we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. As the designer of the HGTV Dream Home, I often feel a lot of pressure to get everything perfect because I've got hundreds of millions of eyes looking at the projects that I do for work. So I assume people will think anything that I'm doing for my own private clients or myself is gonna obviously be dream home caliber. And there's a lot of pressure to do that, but it's also my own home. You know, I'm not designing it for somebody to enter for a chance to win. I'm designing it for me and my family. So there's a lot of pride in that.
There's something about toy food. I always want to play with it too. I get served coffee all the time and it's so good. Hi, my name is Rachel Gloria Adams and this is my handmade home in Portland, Maine. Hi guys, come on in. I'm so excited to show you my place. I am an artist and mural painter and designer. My mom's an artist and an art teacher, and I think that I kind of bucked against the reality that I had it in me, and so I didn't really start making art until my senior year in high school. I went to a college fair and talked to an art school, and they said that they didn't have homework, and I was like, that's the school I want to go to. Ended up getting into all the art schools I applied to, and I just haven't stopped since. Ryan and I created these series of like vignettes around the house, I like to think of it as. The pattern matching and the color stories, things that happen within our artwork, but it's also now kind of translated into the home. As artists, we're maybe doing things that, you know, an interior decorator might not think to do just because of the way we process color and process pattern as texture and just not being afraid to put it up, you know, whatever that may be. And then this is our living room. I kind of was going through this like green period, so you'll notice that this wall color is actually a color that I used in I think 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 murals last year, and it was just kind of my go-to green. Over here is actually one of my pieces. A lot of my artwork from that time period also used a lot of greens and blues, just really craving like the green of summer. The artwork in my living room is kind of a departure. I actually don't like the colors red and orange that much, and I kind of challenged myself to figure out a way to make it work. So I knew that I needed to warm it up a little bit. I started with this vintage print that we got in town, and that kind of served as the basis for everything. This is actually a pillowcase that we framed. I just got a kick out of it as an illustration. This over here is actually fabric that's stretched over a canvas, which is a great way to be able to get a lot of color at once in a really inexpensive way to have unique artwork. We both are really drawn to just like really bright, flat color. And that's in our own personal artwork and then kind of the artwork that we gravitate towards. A lot of the artwork is from, you know, friends of ours or just kind of our immediate art community. It's nice having a history with some of the artwork, and so like that part of it's really nice because it's tied to a relationship or an experience. I think everything has like a little bit of a history to it. We have this Copenhagen print from Ryan and I's first trip to Europe together, and it was on a fence and we pulled it down and somehow managed to fly it back here. I have a Jewish step-grandmother who needle points. She didn't actually make this, but I think my aunt gave it to my mom as a joke, and I saw it and loved it, and it's just kind of this thing that I can't get rid of because it reminds me of her, even though she didn't make it. I don't know. So we knew that with having 4 of us live here that we could never really fully commit to the one space always being one thing, and we had to be open with the fact that our needs were going to constantly change. So our basement was our office and studio for a while, and then that has now turned into a playroom. We wanted the girls to just be able to feel like this was like their own little world, and we wanted there to be kind of like all different activities for them to be able to do in here. We told the girls as clients, like, what would you want in a mural? They gave us a list of like all the things they would want. And so on Christmas morning, we had the tree out and they came downstairs and there was nothing under the tree, which I got a lot of joy out of for a split second. And then they went downstairs and we had like a bubble machine going and they had no idea it was happening the whole time. We kept it all under wraps. Ryan and I both paint murals, and so we kind of assigned each other the areas. He was able to do their names in his graffiti lettering. Nora has a thing for strawberries, and she also asked for poop, so we've got a poop emoji as well. You know, clients have their needs. Zoe, we call Zobug. She's got a little ladybug. It's also kind of fun because Ryan's mom lives in a condo in the same area as us, and he got his start spray painting in her basement. Like one of those sweet moments for his childhood to be able to then do it for his daughters. These dolls right here are a collaboration that I did with a local doll maker, and this is my fabric. They're the cutest. My 2 girls, Zoe and Nora. We left these large shapes so that different things could be hung within them. When I was designing this part of the mural, these flower shapes with matching frames, by having these removable picture frames, we're able to, you know, as the girls get older, update the pictures. My oldest loves to read, and so she's able to go into her little den, zip it up, and then have no one bother her. This is kind of like her little cozy reading nook. My other daughter is our foodie, and she loves being able to use the little kitchenette, and she'll make food and like bring it upstairs on a tray sometimes for us. There's something about toy food that I don't care how old you are, there's just something very magical and fun about them. So I always want to play with it too. I get served coffee all the time, and so good. And yeah, and then we've got some additional photos. I think like just being surrounded in pictures of families just makes everything better. Neither of us grew up with a playroom, so we didn't really have like a bar set for what a good playroom would entail. We just really tried to let our inner childs like kind of shine and figure out what we would have been excited about. Also, as adults, we wanted to be able to like, you know, visit the girls' like space, and it's kind of like a time for us to like come check out their pad and just have it be kind of whimsical, good, clean design. I think I've always loved bright color and pattern, but I think having kids has just like fully enabled us to lean into that and maybe do things that we would have done, but maybe not as boldly. I mean, it's kind of just all of our playhouse, really. This is the girls' bedroom. They asked for a pink room, and I did not give them that. I gave them a pink rug. I really don't like the whole assigning color to gender situation. My girls love the color pink, but it's not necessarily just because they're girls, and so I wanted an opportunity to make pink pop. I also love the ocean and love water, so to be able to have it feel like this immersive experience with pops of pink, I think makes pink feel stronger. Color can really create an environment without having to have a lot of space. The girls' room, we just painted this blue color that makes the room seem way bigger than it was before. It's not a massive space. Just because it's for kids doesn't mean it has to be straight out of the box kind of colors, and that you could have like something that's appealing for both a child and an adult to enjoy. I think with my design and mural work, I try to balance that line of it being approachable by both children and adults. It kind of makes kids feel a little bit maybe more sophisticated, but then it makes an adult feel a little bit more playful. We also have these two Marimekko fabrics that are also stretched over canvas. My sister gifted this fabric to me when I was pregnant with each of my daughters. It just feels like something we'll have forever. This is a piece by, they go by Dirty Bandits, and it's kind of just like a traditional sign painter lettering format. This is kind of where Ryan's style comes into play, where we've got our lettering, and this just felt like the perfect kind of piece to put into the girls' room. This is also by my same friend. So she recreated childhood ornaments that she had, and she's actually my youngest godmother. So she's gifted us these that are also kind of like mementos from her childhood that have like been made modern, which is kind of, in a way, I guess, a theme of a lot of the stuff in our home. By having all these handmade objects by family members and loved ones around, I hope it inspires them that if they have an inkling to be creative, that they feel like they can just do it, and they've had examples of people doing it. I mean, we always say just be unapologetically yourself, and I think for them to see us both following our dreams, it's exciting because not a lot of people get to see their parents do what they love, and so I think that in itself is powerful. And then I think growing up in a house full of art, I think it's just joyful. The artwork that they bring back home, I can see our house reflected in what they're doing at school. You know, it's what we're passionate about, and being able to share that passion with our kids is really exciting. Honestly, this is it's gonna sound kind of weird. I'm excited for the next adventure. I think that, you know, you learn so much with taking over a space like this, and then it's like helped me build my creative voice and my design sense, and it makes me want to take on additional challenges and like what possibly could be next. I mean, it's exciting.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Smith from @Charlotte's House. Welcome to my handmade home. When I first looked at this house with my agent, I didn't get that warm, fuzzy, this is your forever home feeling. There was not really anything about this house that I loved, and we kept looking, and my agent, who is also a dear friend, finally came back, and she said, I think we need to just reframe this. I think you need to consider what your skill set is, and your skill set is taking not very colorful, maybe kind of plain spaces and making them fun and energetic and personal. So why don't we look at the house again and see what you can do to it? I am a full-time content creator, and what that means is that every space is always up for grabs. So when I first walked through this house, I had a real long list, and it's been sort of a fun project for me to work on both professionally and personally. For me, my job is just a series of projects that I try to share and teach to my audience on both my blog and social media. I started doing things around the house, and it was really exciting for me to show other women that they could do what they wanted in their own home. They didn't need to be limited by budget or skills, that there was really a way to tackle any project, no matter how big and no matter how small. So that's kind of been my driving force. But personally, my job gives me so much joy. I get to wake up every morning and figure out ways to make my house more fun. I get to learn new projects. So it has sort of been a win-win career choice, if you will. This is my foyer. This is the first space you see when you come in the house, and as you can tell, it's so small. So the first thing I wanted to do was just to go big. There's a lot of pattern. There's no rhyme or reason to the pattern. I probably shouldn't admit to that, but I really liked the wallpaper. I wanted something big and kind of floral. I really love the runner. Do they match? Probably not. Do I care? Definitely not. And then the rest was just trying to maximize the space. So I wanted to bring in a really fun light fixture up top. This little foyer table, this was originally just an IKEA RAS dresser, so it was so simple, and it was honestly the only thing that would fit this tiny diminutive space. So I went ahead and I added this flexible trim, which I had never heard of, but I am now officially team flexible trim. I added some handles, I added some acrylic legs, and then I painted it a color that I had to kind of custom match to pull from the wallpaper. I love little spaces because you can sort of flex your muscle and anything goes. At least that's my philosophy. Let's get this on camera because this is what it's like to live with 5 children. You're welcome. I did paint the railing. I know that this is sort of a controversial decision, but there was nothing special about this railing. This was basically a builder grade railing, and so instead of having a color that I didn't love, I thought, I don't know, YOLO, do we still say that? You only live once. So I painted it to match the wallpaper. And then moving through, this is just a beautiful wall hanging that I found at the flea market. I love that it brings in a little bit of natural texture. I think artwork would have competed with the wallpaper, so this is sort of a neutral, but there's still a lot to it, which I love. And then if you walk through, this is my kitchen. We spend the most time in our kitchen, which I think is probably pretty typical of a family, and the kitchen can certainly take the most budget out of us, and we didn't have the budget. So my favorite thing in this kitchen is probably just the green cabinets. Green is having a real moment, but I also love green. I use it a lot in my house. Other things that I have done, I did go ahead and add my own backsplash. I really love these sort of green tiles. They all have a slightly different handmade feel to them. So I think that brings the green around. My kids sit around this island all the time. This counter is never this clear. Don't be thinking this is how we live. But this is really where we spend our time. So the kids will be here doing homework. I will be set up with my laptop. So this space, I would say, is a pretty successful makeover with a limited budget. The sunroom, if I'm being honest, was one of the prettiest spaces in the house when I first saw it, but I didn't love a lot of the features. And so again, my solution to camouflage some of those kind of harder things to fix was just to bring in a lot of color. So these are very basic IKEA rugs. I stacked a bunch of them so that it would fit this sort of awkward shape. So there is a lot of seating in here, which may look a little funny, but we have a lot of people, so these chairs get used. This round table I found at the Restore, and it just needed a little love. I didn't do much to it, but I did refinish it. I found some colorful chairs. If there was ever a chair that fit my personality, these would be it. I love these chairs. What else can I show you in here? I love showing my house. This is so fun. This is my dining room, and we use it. You know how a lot of dining rooms you never use? We use it because we fit in here really nicely. So this is a really fun celebratory place. This was maybe the second space that I did in this house. I fell in love with this chinoiserie wallpaper, so I installed this myself. I've gotten pretty good at wallpaper over the years, which is definitely something I can flex my muscle with. And then this is sort of a space where I'm just highlighting some of my favorite things, which is honestly a lot of how my decorating works. I find something fun and I use it. So these sconces I found at a flea market, I think they're meant to have a candle. They don't, they're just there. This is a painting I got from my grandmother. I love it. I get asked about it all the time. Obviously that needed to have a prominent spot. And then other things are flea market or thrifted. If I find something sort of quirky and funky, I'm gonna find a space for it. And it doesn't have to make any sense, but that's where it's gonna live. This is my globe collection, and it started with any collection. I'm stating the obvious with one. I think I really liked one of these from the flea market, but I didn't know what to do with it. So every time I went to the flea market, if I saw another one, I picked it up, and now I have many, many globes. And I've always thought they look really fun when they're displayed all together because one item is cheesy, but many items is a collection. We are in my living room, which is, I can't say my favorite room, but it's one of my favorite rooms just because it has so much color and things to look at, which I think we've already established is sort of how I decorate. When we had to move into this house, I sat down and I tried to get excited about some of the spaces. And this room was the first room that sort of came to me in my mind. I had this idea of doing a lot of color, big. I knew I had a big green couch that has always been just a favorite element in a room. If you have a big green couch, come on, you have to lean into it and bring in color and pattern everywhere else. And then I had this idea for doing a really fun gallery wall, and we call it My Ladies. So it's all just really colorful pictures. I've now incorporated some family portraits. So this wall is ever growing. I made this coffee table. This was my attempt at, there's sort of an anthropology version that has black and white stripes and it has that sort of waterfall line. So I thought, why not try it? And is it a lot? It is, but I love it. This rug was one of the first things I ever bought when I owned a home. This was from a local outlet, so nobody can get it again. I'm sorry to everyone who asks. And I use all the colors to just sort of inform the space. This dresser was $40. This was covered in white paint, and I bought it because I had to show the process of stripping paint. And when I stripped it, this is what I found underneath, and I just die a little bit inside when I think about the person who decided to paint over this. Here's where the internet is real salty with me. Come in close, because you'll notice I didn't bother to strip the side of it. But you know what I tell them? I don't leave the doors open, so you don't see it. How pretty is that? This is my sheep. Why do you have a sheep, Charlotte? I have no explanation. I just wanted to make one. These sort of sheeps have popped up in fancy design places, but the price tag is not for me. So I just figured out a way to make it. And this is an old rug that I had kicking around. And this sheep is one of my favorites. So here's my sheep. So this room is really the itch that I get to scratch. I can bring things in, I can do what I want in here, and for the most part, the kids stay out of it, so it stays neat, which I love. These side tables were something else that I got when my grandmother passed away. These were in her bedroom, and towards the end of her life, we spent a lot of time in her bedroom. So I love that these are here, and now every time we're in here, I think about her, and oh, I haven't opened this. This was from her. I'm being told that's very authentic. I had never saw that. It's like a little sewing thing. So apparently there's a few things from my grandmother in here. Oh my God, look at that! Okay, so now, this is now a little bit of the decor. So that's gonna live right there. And that is how you design. Okay, we're gonna go upstairs because I'm gonna show you our bedroom, my kids' bedroom, so come on up. This is our primary bedroom. And it's so big. It's so big. And I could see that for a lot of folks, you would think, oh my gosh, a giant cavernous bedroom, that's great. For me, it just felt too big. Like, what am I doing with all this space? So my biggest challenge for this space was how could I furnish it to kind of close it in a little and make it feel a little bit more intimate. We have a king size bed, so that helps. But I think the biggest thing that I did in here was actually creating this, I put it in quotes, this built-in. So this started as 2 pieces that I found at the Restore, but they were dated. They had sort of glass doors and I didn't love the front. So I added sort of a shaker molding to the front. I painted it to match the wall color. I put a desk in the middle, and it is not obviously a built-in, but it does fill the space. It gives us some storage, and I think it solves the problem of creating a little less space in here. And then if we move along over here, this little chaise lounge, you can look that up. I don't know how you pronounce it. I got this on Facebook Marketplace, and this is the original. I didn't do anything to it. I made this cute diptych to go over it. I got the prints just like this, and then I created the frames. We're gonna talk about the rugs because in big spaces, finding a rug that is gonna fit is sometimes a big issue, and it can be a big price point. These are 2 very budget-friendly rugs that I think I got just at a big box store, and I just have 2 side by side. I made sure that I picked a pattern that would sort of flow together nicely. Obviously, you can see the seam, but it's not the first thing you see when you walk in the room. And then I just layered some smaller throw rugs. This might all get rearranged, but for now, it just helps anchor this other layout. So this giant room now has a few sort of areas. There's a sleeping area, and the area we're gonna pretend to work at, and the area we're gonna pretend to read at. And it just helps to shrink the space a little bit, which was my goal. With 5 kids, we only have 4 bedrooms, so 2 children are sharing, much to their chagrin. So the first bedroom that I really tackled was the shared bedroom, and that's the one where I built a beautiful bunk bed, and I wallpapered, and I tried to listen to what my kids wanted. And then I just finished a bedroom that is sort of shared, but it's sort of this funny hybrid. My oldest daughter is now away for high school at a boarding school, so she doesn't stay here all the time. So my middle daughter is taking the opportunity to move right on in. So what did we do in here? Kind of everything. The girls both agreed that the bed worked best here, which would not be my choice, but it's not my room. And then they wanted a couch, they wanted a desk, and just figuring that out was easier said than done. So we painted everything. And when we say we, you guys know I mean me, right? Okay. I recovered a headboard that I had already made. I recovered that with sort of a neutral rose pink. So that rose is kind of the accent color. And then I brought in bedding that both girls agreed upon. Again, that is a miracle of miracles. This is a painting that my great-grandmother painted. My daughter noticed that the windows looked kind of naked. She said, I love curtains or something, but because there's furniture in front of all the windows, curtains weren't the best choice. And so this was a way of bringing a little bit of interest to the windows without going crazy. So I was able to build this out of inexpensive, I don't know, 1/2-inch plywood. Some people even use foam core, so it can be really budget. And then I upholstered it. I glued this ribbon on just to bring in the pink. And I think this is a really fun detail that successfully added a little bit of interest to the windows without overpowering the space and making me crazy because it was too much work. A lot of the stuff for the house that I make happens in my office, so let's go look at that. This used to be the dreariest concrete space. This back wall was just these shabby built-ins, and now this is kind of the colorful, crafty space of my dreams. But a couple things that we did in here. I had a professional group of drywallers come and frame and drywall. I am handy, I am not that handy. So once that was set, I came in and I was able to spray all the walls, I framed out the windows, I painted the floor. If you can't paint a floor in your office a bright, colorful blue, I don't know where you can. So that was a really fun start. And then behind me, I obviously wanted to have just a whole wall to store everything from photo styling props, which is basically a code word for stuff that I've bought and I don't want to get rid of. I bought budget-friendly base cabinets, and then I put budget-friendly butcher block on top. I built these shelves. Did I do it right? Not quite. There's a few places that weren't perfect, but this was my first attempt at shelves. And so this is one of those times when I tell people, you gotta just try it, you're gonna learn. Next time I built shelves, they're gonna be better. And these look fine, and for my office, they're great. My sort of unofficial tagline is just try it, because from every mistake, you learn something new. And if you think that anyone is learning anything without making mistakes, you're crazy. That's just not how it works. So I don't share all my mistakes, but I do try to share the ones that have informed my learning, because that's just part of it. I don't turn this on nearly enough because pink neon is completely underrated. It's super fun, but that's where it lives. For me, being an influencer is not about sharing my outfits or sharing my makeup. It's more about encouraging and cheering people on to sort of think that first question of, can I do this? Because for me, that's where it all started. It was a toilet that I broke trying to change the toilet seat, and I thought, heck, I have to call a plumber either way. So is this something I can do? And I think that philosophy has sort of been present on my social media, on my website ever since. And I think there's a lot of women, particularly my age, who wasn't sort of on their radar that women or homeowners could do these things. And so I want the first question to always be, could I do this on my own? And, I'm here to say, yeah, you can.
Hi, I'm Kyle Ortiz, and this is my renovation story. Come on in. I've been DIYing for a long time, but when I moved into this house, I wanted to document that process. And so I created an Instagram page, and I started sharing all the projects that I do here at the house. Every project I did, I recorded, and everything that I shared, people liked it, and I started to grow this following. I think it combined with not having a lot of money and kind of having the necessity to make a home that fit our growing family, and then just kind of figuring out how to do it. And over the last few years, it's really kind of become my whole job. I left my normal job to do this full time. I'm all self-taught. I learned how to do pretty much everything that I've done in this house and in previous houses from YouTube. So there's this whole full circle moment where now I am teaching people online how to do projects in their homes, when I have, for the last 10 years, been learning from people online how to do projects in their homes. I'm a DIY dad and a full-time content creator. I live here with my family, my wife Amanda, and our 3 children, Jonah, Emma, and Samson. Jonah is 10, Emma is 7, and Samson is 4. I'm just like every dad. I'm trying to juggle being a husband and taking care of my kids and all the normal parts of life while I'm renovating this house one room at a time. This is the kitchen, and this is probably my biggest, low cost, high impact renovation that I've done. It was basically super brown. It had dark brown cabinetry, had this stacked stone backsplash. The whole house looked like Olive Garden. Lots of dark wood, lots of dark flooring. It was just like a time capsule of 2013. It looked like that year if it was personified. Not current at all. The floors were a big part of that. They were this really dark laminate that matched the espresso brown cabinets, and then dark brown walls. So I replaced all of the flooring with this really nice engineered hardwood, and I went through the entire lower level of the house, and it just has brightened up the entire space so much. When I moved into this house, I probably had done floors 3 times or 4 times. But when I did these floors, I really perfected the way that I lay flooring, and I probably could do it as a job. Just saying. I really love the floors, actually. They're my favorite. The cabinets were in really good shape. They just had that horrible stain, that dark espresso stain. So I just gave them a fresh coat of paint. Green was the color that I liked, and it's just the perfect green. Perfect green. I love it. Paint is this low cost, high impact way of changing a space and making it current. So I've used paint in a bunch of different places in the house to make a big impact. In closet doors, baseboards in different spaces. A gallon of paint is 40 bucks, and I always say that you can never underestimate the power of a gallon of paint. I did add some new hardware, but even the hardware is from Amazon. It's really inexpensive. But other than that, the cabinets are mainly how they were. We didn't have the budget to change the cabinets. We did not have the budget to change out the countertops. I don't have that kind of money. So we knew that those two things were gonna have to stay. So we had to stick with the countertops the way that they were, and then to brighten up the entire space and to make it look more like our home. We did the backsplash and built some floating shelves. I decided to bring in some tile underneath to kind of make the space feel more customized. I intentionally went with this stacked vertical look because I wanted to minimize the amount of cuts that I had to make on the wet saw. And so I had to make like very few cuts just around the outlets and things like that. Every time I tile, I say that I'm never gonna tile again because of how much I hate tiling. But it's so hard to not tile again because of how good it looks and how inexpensive it is if you pick like in-stock tile. This whole backsplash cost me $97 in material. Plus maybe 3 days of work. That wall was a lot harder. Hexagon tile is one of those things that I wasn't prepared for how difficult it was going to be. Because instead of just having 4 sides to match up, is it 6? You have 6 sides that you have to line up, and getting them all to be correct it was just a pain in the butt. But now I love it. It's one of my favorite parts of the kitchen, and it adds this really cool focal point in here. And it accentuates like this giant window that we have, which I love. It's my favorite place to be. The hexagon tile was a nightmare. The whole thing was a nightmare. Cost-wise, it was really inexpensive, but the cost to my mental health was high. It was a lot of work. So altogether, I was able to do this entire renovation in 8 weeks, and it was $1,700. Working full-time, working on the evenings after I got off of work for the day, and then working on the weekends. $1,700 all in. Tile, drywall, even the brackets for the shelves were all part of that total cost. And there was a lot of things I didn't know how to do, but I think that really speaks to doing things yourself, low cost, high impact. It really makes a huge difference. And I still love this room. It's been 3 years and I still love this space. And I think it was maybe the best $1,700 I have ever spent. So before we head upstairs, there's one thing that I wanted to show you right here. We had this closet that was right here by the entryway, and I'm pretty sure we put stuff in it when we moved in, and then we didn't open it until like 3 months ago. So I transformed it into this like functional drop zone for my kids. So each kid has their own little cubby down here where they can put all their stuff. It's just a really organized space, and then I can take the baskets out and say, take your basket upstairs and go put all your stuff away. And then they have a space where they can hang up their backpacks, and then I have a water bottle filler actually on the wall so that they can get water as they're on their way out the door. They love that we have a bottle filler here, and they actually use it all the time. I'm always trying to find ways to make this home as functional as it can be, because I find that makes my life smoother. It makes my life more efficient. So I just did it because I had to get it done. And it probably would have cost me like $5,000. And I don't have $5,000 to spend on something like that. So this is our family room. I actually just completed this space pretty recently. It was just a box, just like every other room in this house, just like a basic box. Never hung out in here. And so I wanted to make this space a lot more conducive to hanging out and relaxing. One of the main things that I did was add this like trim molding on the walls, and it's actually really, really simple to do. I did do new baseboards, new door casings, just to kind of like bring it to match the downstairs. Cut it all up, put it all on here, and gave everything a fresh coat of paint, and it just looks a lot nicer than what the builder put in. It's like really chill and cool. My kids think it's awesome, and it's super comfortable. I wanted to do something to that space to make it just look a little bit more elevated. And it transformed this basic, boring box into this very fun and relaxing place to watch TV, hang out with the kids, and just like relax. It was $120 for the trim molding pieces, and then all the baseboards and stuff was $60. I already had a gallon of paint that I needed, so excluding the furniture, this room was done for less than $200. It took me 4 days to get it done, and it looks really great. So this is the kids' bathroom, and it was just a standard basic bathroom, and I wanted something that was gonna be really fun and exciting for the kids. They kind of all agreed on the final colors, and then I executed the design. So there's a little pink, there's a little blue, there's some fun zebras, and it's just like a fun, exciting place. I also did all new door casings. I added this paneling around the perimeter here. I did a tile backsplash, I did 2 separate mirrors, and then I found this vanity on Craigslist actually. And then I redid all the tile flooring, and then I put some wallpaper on the walls just to make it fun and bright. It just has totally transformed that entire space. We love it. On the other side of this wall is the laundry room, which I also renovated to make more functional for our family. It looks completely different than it used to before. There was no sink, and I really, really, really wanted a sink. My kids make giant messes, so being able to soak things in a sink was really important to have. And because the kids' bathroom is right on the other side of this wall here, I was able to just tap into the plumbing that was there. Now there's a sink. And then I got a stacked washer and dryer unit, and that freed up this counter space here. Butcher block was pretty inexpensive, and I was able to install that and use that as countertop, and then beadboard instead of actual tile backsplash. And then we have like a whole folding area over there, which is really functional. I wanted to do something that was like avocado green, harvest gold, Brady Bunch, 1970s, those kinds of vibes. I think it looks great, and all this stuff is pretty cheap. So this is my daughter's room, and whenever it comes to designing a room for my kids, I really want the room to be inspiring for them. I want it to match their style, things that they're interested in. In this room specifically, I really wanted my daughter to feel empowered, creative. She's a very creative person, so I wanted her to feel like this is her space. I want her to know that she can be anything and do anything, and I want her room to be reflective of the way that she feels about herself. I think the space you live in can kind of dictate your outlook on life. So everything from the artwork to the colors that I picked in that room was all specifically picked to not only match her personality and her style, but to be something that inspires her, that made her feel empowered to be all the different things that she really can be. I want her to feel like she can do anything. So I wanted to go with pink, but like more accented, more mellow, more relaxed. I installed new baseboards. I painted them the fun pink color to match the accent wall. On her wall where her bed is, I installed like a faux board and batten kind of a treatment, and then I painted that entire thing. And then I did this really cool chalkboard thing. She's very artistic. This is like $20 for a little quart of chalk paint, and then I just painted the shape of a house, and then I trimmed it out with this 1x3 pine. I wanted them to not be encouraged to carry the chalk outside of the chalkboard, and it works. I always have a pretty tight budget. There's a lot of spaces that I want to do. There's still parts of this house that I haven't done yet, and my kids are young, and so as they grow older, their tastes are going to change, and so keeping things simple, keeping the costs low to start, in a way that their styles can evolve without like making big changes, mean that when it is time to change something, or when they do want to change something, it doesn't feel like a waste of time or a waste of money. I can easily update this entire space in a weekend, and that's one of my favorite parts of learning how to do all these things, is being able to make spaces that my kids love and that my family loves. And at the end of the day, if I spent $200 in this room and then 3 years go by and I want to change it, or she wants me to change it, spending another $200 or $300 is not that big of a deal, and I can make that happen for her. So I like doing it. My youngest son, Samson, has the smallest room in the house. He also has like the biggest personality. So I wanted to give him a room that was really fun to look at, like visually fun for him to be in. And so my wife is very artistic, great with her freehand. And so she freehanded the mural on the wall. And then I came in and I painted it. And then I pulled one of the colors out of there and I pulled that into the baseboards or the doors. And then I had these IKEA cabinets that we have had for 10 years now. And they've been in every single kid's room, and they ended up in his room. I painted those with clearance cabinet paint that I found at Home Depot for like $6. So I'm always trying to keep costs as low as possible. So if I see a paint color that I like on clearance, I'm gonna grab it. My other son, Jonah, is 10 years old, and I said, what colors do you want for your room? Like, what colors do you like? And he said blue was his main color that he wanted. And I said, okay, let's pick an accent color. And he landed on yellow, and the two look great. And then that mustard color is inside his closet. So when you open his closet doors, you're hit with this really bright, fun mustard yellow. And it's just like one of those really custom parts of this house that people are probably gonna hate when they move in here, but I just love it, and I don't care about the next person who lives here. I really don't. In my room, I still wanted there to be a focal point in the room for us, and so I ended up painting this arch, and we love it. It's really calming, and it has like mid-century modern vibes, and I couldn't decide what headboard I wanted, so I just painted one. And it looks like a nice, comfortable sunset. I needed something that was gonna anchor the room and look nice, but not break the bank. So I spent $13 on 1 quart of paint to bring in warmth and make it look more like us. Paint is just an easy way to update a space. This home is so special to me because it has quite literally changed my entire life. And now making this home special to us and showing other people how they can do the same thing at their homes as well, that's defined me completely. I have loved transforming this home. And I don't know if I'll ever be done doing it, really. I think I'll always have a project to do around here. There's this line from Father of the Bride. I want to get it tattooed on me. This house is warm in the winter, it's cool in the summer, and it looks spectacular with Christmas lights. And that totally captures this house. And I would go back and I would do it again and again and again because of how much of an impact it's made.